Hello, I'm going to show you something. I'm going to ask you to guess what it is. So I'm going to hold it up for a moment. Can you see? There it is again. So what do you think it is? What's it look like? Have you seen something like this before maybe? Well, here, let me flip it over. It's just a piece of cardboard. But it's a piece of cardboard that I have cut and formed and decorated. And I'm going to show you some of the techniques that I've used. This has taken me a little while to make something like this, but if you start, who knows what it might lead to. So a couple of things you need to think about. One is, I would say, keep it as simple as possible and you won't be disappointed. Some people let their imagination and their ideas run away and they end up trying to build something that they can't. So there's really three things I'm going to show you or talk to you about. The first thing is all about how to cut the material. We'll talk about the material that we're going to cut in a moment. Second thing is gluing, bonding, or joining that material to change the shape of it. And then the third thing we're going to look at is decorating. So if you've got an idea, as you saw, I've put little switches and controls and things on mine, how we decorate. And I'm going to show you those three different things now. So I'm just going to show you some of the materials that I might use. So these kind here, this is a little bit like what people call cereal boxes. So although this didn't have a cereal in it, I think you know what I mean. So these kind of boxes here, thin card, these are ideal for what we're going to do. So I'd really recommend, and what you might do if you've got something like a ruler, look to see if you can find this. They often have a glued seam, and what I'm trying to do there is using a ruler, free it up, see what I've done there, neatly break off the glue, and then look, you've got all that nice clean card. Let me hold it up to my other camera and you can see look at how much card I've got. Loads of card from that one. So that's the thin card you might get from like a cereal box. I'm going to show you around certain times of the year, Easter egg packages, they're quite popular. They can be challenging to use because they often have large holes cut out of them, and they have these kind of strange intricate folds that, unless you plan to use them, they can actually get in the way and they can be a problem. Now there's another type of card I'm going to talk about while we're talking about card, which is corrugated card. So this is a piece of corrugated card, and you can usually tell because if you look inside it, I've got another example here, it has all these ridges or flutes that make it corrugated. Now the thing about corrugated card, in one direction it can be quite flexible and you can roll it and fold it quite easily, but if you try to fold it in the other direction, those ridges, they actually give it strength, and it's quite hard to get a neat fold where you want it to. So I'd say it's quite a difficult material to use. I'd probably recommend that you try to avoid using corrugated card where possible. Although it does have its advantages. If you're trying to build something much bigger than your hand, something like the size of your head or larger, corrugated card can be quite useful. And certainly I've seen people create huge objects like that you could sit in or carry about like a costume or something, and corrugated card is really useful for those kind of things. But really my top recommendation would be to go for thin card. Now to cut your card, there's a limited number of tools that you have available. My top recommendation for small hands would be scissors, but even some scissors can be really dangerous. These have got a very sharp pointy tip, so probably not the best kind of scissors. You can be better off using something that's got rounded edges on the end. Some people might decide to use one of these knives that are called box cutter knives. I would say avoid using them as much as possible. I would say these are only really for skillful use by an adult. I've used them a couple of times myself, and oh my gosh, you can really badly injure yourself. So really do not recommend the use of these knives at all, even for adults, I would say. Now there's another one that I haven't mentioned just yet, and some people call this a canary cutter, possibly because of the yellow handle on it. These are a really, really safe way. I wouldn't say you can't injure yourself because they do have some very, very, very fine teeth along there. And it's not a good idea to rub your finger along it too hard or too fast. But I am rubbing my finger on it and I can feel them tiny, tiny little teeth. And if I just do a little bit of a demonstration, you can just, like a saw, you can quite quickly and easily cut into it like a saw. And the thing is, because it's nice and rounded on the end, you're not really going to do much damage to anybody. And if I just go and get a piece of corrugated card, just pull one up here, I'll just show you. With the canary cutter, corrugated card, they just love to cut through. Look at this. Look at that. That is just fantastic. So my top recommendation is the scissors. But if you were using corrugated card, you can't really get better than one of these canary cutters, although not everybody's going to have one at home. So I think for most people, using things at home, we're talking about scissors that are not too sharp, that are going to injure yourself, and some thin card. So I've brought some tape along to show, so you might recognize these. So we have a clear tape. Let me hold that up to the camera there. So if you're going to be using this, it's always a good idea to do any decoration that needs to be done underneath the tape. I've brought some double-sided tape. So this one is really useful for building up layers when you want to sandwich pieces of card together. So double-sided tape, but quite tricky to use and peel off. You can buy one that's called Easy Peel. This is actually one of my favorites. So masking tape, this is quite a broad masking tape, but you don't need special scissors. You can often just tear small pieces off, and it's really useful when you're building something quickly and you want to try things out, just to put little bits of masking tape on to hold things together. And it can be reused lots and lots of times as well, and you can draw on masking tape. So it really is one of my favorite, but of course this is white, this one. And then finally there's another one. If we are making huge big constructions, parcel tape, and recognize that sound. Okay, so parcel tape, great for parcels, maybe not quite so useful for building models with. So far I have briefly mentioned cutting to change the shape of something, adhesive, glue, tape to join things together, and now I'm going to talk about decoration. Now I would always recommend, where possible, if you need straight lines, use a ruler, and a pencil is a good idea. I'm using one of these pencils. I got this free one day. I was having a nice lunch somewhere and they let me take the pencil away. So the thing about pencils is if you're very, very, very careful, you can draw lines that you can just about see with your eye, but they're almost invisible. We call them construction lines. So you can just see at the beginning where I started heavily, and now the line has gone a little bit softer. And I would say, when you are drawing lines, if it's a line that you're going to decorate, well, then it doesn't matter if you draw kind of a thick, solid, bold line like that one there. But if it's a line that for later on where you're going to fold something, so you're not going to cut, it's a good idea to do some kind of symbol or code to yourself. So a dotted line is a good way to represent or show that you're going to be cutting, folding, whereas a solid line, so if I write the word cut there and fold there, then that's a little signal to yourself. Now, one of the things to watch out for, so I mentioned before about corrugated card being hard to fold. This card here has already got some score lines. So a score is where you use an object like a ruler. So you can score with a ruler, or you could use this curved part of the scissors. And what you do is you push down hard like this, and it basically means it's like a ridge on the card. So later on when we fold it, it makes it a little bit easier. So this package has already got some score lines in it, and that's why at the moment it makes it easier to fold it on there. Look, see, we can see the original print on the outside. Now, earlier I mentioned how to cut. Sometimes people ask, How do you cut a hole in something in card? Well, I would try to recommend you avoid cutting any holes in card where possible. What you can do is you can create the illusion of a hole, and this is what I'm going to show now. So um, I do sometimes use a compass to draw a circle, but I keep lots of little bits of junk in the house, little small things that don't take up a lot of space, like bottle caps. And if you want to draw a hole, it would be really hard to cut a neat hole in a piece of card. But as I'm drawing around this now, and I want to create the illusion of a hole, you could just now go and start to shade that in. So I can do that now. And if you're just making a model, people don't actually really need to be able to put things through that hole. All you're going to do is you're just going to show people that the intention is there's a hole there. And I'm going to show you how you might do the same with a button. So I'll do that next. So what I want to do now is I want to show you the technique that I use to create these buttons here. And I'm going to demonstrate them. So if I just put that over there to one side for a moment. And I'm going to draw another circle, this time carefully drawing around the outside of the cap. And I now have my circle. So the next thing is you might use pencil crayons. I have these, they're like little chalks, they're called soft pastels. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to kind of carefully here shade in there. Now these pastels, they're called soft pastels. One of the things you can do is with your finger, you can blend it like this to give it like a softer kind of shade. And you can keep doing that. You can keep building up, building in a stronger colour like this. And then sometimes I do is I use masking tape. So on this one, to create the screen, I put some masking tape around the outside so that the colour, that green I was using, didn't bleed over into other parts. Okay. Now, if I want to make it look like a button, like I've done on here, I don't know if you can see, if I get my pencil to show you, I want these buttons to look like they're standing upwards or standing proud. So I've added in some shadow here and some highlights here. And I'm going to show you how you might do that. So the way I did this was I tried to imagine all the time that the light was coming from this direction here. So you might find that this is a little bit advanced for some, but I basically draw almost like a smile along here. So it's thin at each end, and then in the middle is just a little bit more. It's just a little bit more there in the middle. So again, I'm going to blend that now with my finger just to tidy up. And these pastels I'm using, sometimes if I make a mistake, I can use my eraser just to tidy them up a little bit. So let's just add a little bit of shadow there. And now I have a white one to add in some highlight. And I'm going to do the same. I'm going to do, it's like an upside down smile this time. So make it a little bit thicker in the middle. And basically when I was doing that, I just did that a few times until I was then happy with the final appearance. So you can see it's almost the same kind of thing. And then what you can do if you want, you can just use a pen or a pencil to add in some of those little fine points around there for that. When I was doing any writing I was doing, one of the things I would do is I would make a little box for where, again, using these faint construction lines. So on this one it has the word start. And then before I picked up my pen, let me move this over here into the middle, I would then just very gently write those letters and then think, oh, hang on, I'm not going to fit them all. Oh, yes, if I do the R there, then I will. And then finally, I can come along with my pen and concentrate as I then do that just a bit more carefully. Now, I did say at the beginning of this video to try to keep it simple. I found when I've been making these models, I'll sometimes build one first of all just to see how it works, and as I build it, in fact I have one of these I can show you. So here's actually the first model that I built, and I found it a real challenge because I was trying to make it out of corrugated card, and I did warn you before that corrugated card for something that's kind of hand sized, corrugated card is a little bit too heavy duty. So if I turn it around, you'll see, oh look, there's a great big piece of masking tape on the back, and that's just so I can open it quite easily and I can have a look inside. Oh, here's another tip I used. Sometimes I stuff a hollow structure with some bits of cardboard to pack it, to give it some kind of strength. And anyway, the point I was showing with this one was this was the first one that I created, and this was just for me to try a few things out. And I'll be honest, there was some details around here I thought, oh, come on, Alan, you can do better than this. And that's why after I did this first model and I came to build a second one, like for example, when I shared these photographs online, somebody said to me, oh, why don't you make that bit there a little bit more curved? So I did exactly that, and I think it looks just a little bit better. So there we are, the two of them together. So there we are. So my advice, again, keep it simple. Don't go for complicated. Think about the tools that you're going to use, the materials that you're going to use, how you're going to join those together, and maybe practice things a few times if you really want it to be the best that it possibly can. But have fun.